75mm pack howitzer M1. This lightweight field piece became the primary airborne and mountain artillery weapon for United States forces, designed for rapid dismantlement and air transport. The 75mm pack howitzer M1 was developed in 1927 to provide mobile fire support for cavalry and mountain infantry units operating in terrain inaccessible to heavier artillery. The weapon measured 67 inches long, weighed 1,439 pounds in firing position, and featured a unique design allowing disassembly into 6 to 9 separate loads for mule transport. The barrel generated a muzzle velocity of 1,250 feet per second, firing a 14-pound high-explosive shell to 9,610 yards maximum range. The United States produced approximately 8,800 M1 pack howitzers between 1939 and 1945. Airborne divisions dropped these weapons from C-47 transport aircraft in 9 separate parachute containers during operations including Sicily, Normandy, Market Garden, and the Philippines. The weapon also served extensively in the Pacific Theater, with infantry cannon companies operating in mountainous jungle terrain. 105mm howitzer M2A1. This medium field howitzer represented the most produced and widely deployed American artillery piece of World War II, serving as the standard divisional fire support weapon. The 105mm howitzer M2A1 was developed in 1941 as an improved version of the M2 with enhanced recoil mechanism and carriage. The weapon measured 148 inches long, weighed 4,980 pounds in firing position, and utilized a semi-fixed ammunition system, allowing gunners to adjust powder charges by removing increment bags for precise trajectory control. The barrel generated a muzzle velocity of 1,550 feet per second, firing a 33-pound projectile to 12,325 yards maximum range. The United States produced approximately 8,500 M2A1 howitzers between 1941 and 1945. The weapon equipped every Army Division's Field Artillery Battalion, providing responsive indirect fire support throughout North Africa, Italy, Northwest Europe, and the Pacific. The M2A1's combination of mobility, accuracy, and hitting power made it the workhorse of American divisional artillery. 105mm howitzer M3. This shortened field howitzer provided infantry cannon companies with a lighter alternative to the M2A1 while maintaining 105mm firepower. The 105mm howitzer M3 was developed in 1942 by combining a shortened M2A1 barrel with the lighter carriage of the 75mm pack howitzer. Ordnance engineers shortened the standard barrel by 27 inches, reducing weight to 2,495 pounds in firing position. The abbreviated barrel generated a muzzle velocity of 1,020 feet per second, firing a 33-pound projectile to 8,300 yards maximum range. The United States produced approximately 2,550 M3 howitzers between 1942 and 1945. The weapon equipped infantry cannon companies requiring lighter artillery that could be manhandled across difficult terrain. The M3 served throughout the European and Pacific theaters, though its reduced range compared to the M2, AI1 limited tactical flexibility. 4.5-inch gun M1. This medium-range gun provided extended reach for corps-level artillery, though logistical complications limited its deployment. The 4.5-inch gun M1, equivalent to 114 millimeters, was developed in 1941 to fill the gap between divisional 105mm howitzers and heavier corps artillery. The weapon measured 243 inches long, weighed 12,992 pounds in firing position, and shared the M1 split trail carriage with the 155mm howitzer, creating supply and training complications. The barrel generated a muzzle velocity of 2,275 feet per second, firing a 55-pound shell to 21,100 yards maximum range. The United States produced approximately 401 guns between 1941 and 1945. The weapon saw limited service in Italy and Northwest Europe, though commanders generally preferred the 155mm howitzer, despite its shorter range. The M1's shell, manufactured from lower-grade steel, produced inferior fragmentation patterns compared to other American artillery. 155mm howitzer M1. This heavy howitzer became the standard medium fire support weapon for corps and Army-level artillery units, providing devastating firepower against fortified positions. The 155mm howitzer M1 was developed in 1941 to provide heavier indirect fire support than divisional artillery could deliver. The weapon measured 182 inches long, weighed 12,950 pounds in firing position, and featured a complex interrupted screw breech. The barrel generated a muzzle velocity of 1,850 feet per second, firing a 95-pound projectile to 16,350 yards maximum range. Gun crews mechanically jacked the entire carriage onto a central firing pedestal, removing weight from the pneumatic tires to allow 63 degrees maximum elevation. The United States produced approximately 6,100 M1 howitzers between 1941 and 1945. The weapon served extensively throughout all theaters, providing crucial fire support during major offensives, including Normandy, the Bulge, and Pacific Island campaigns. 155mm gun, M1/M2, Long Tom. This long-range gun provided American forces with extended-range counter-battery capability, universally known as the Long Tom. The 155mm gun M1 was developed in 1938 to deliver precision fire against distant targets beyond howitzer range. The weapon measured 295 inches long, weighed 30,600 pounds in firing position, and featured a unique two-axle, eight-wheel bogey system. The barrel generated a muzzle velocity of 2,800 feet per second, firing a 95-pound shell to 25,715 yards, approximately 15 miles maximum range. When emplaced for firing, crews mechanically raised the entire wheel assembly, dropping the steel carriage belly flush against the earth to absorb violent recoil. The United States produced approximately 1,100 Long Toms between 1940 and 1945. The weapon served in Corps and Army artillery battalions throughout Europe and the Pacific, providing devastating long-range fire support during the Battle of the Bulge and subsequent operations. 8-inch howitzer M1. This heavy howitzer provided Army-level artillery with exceptional accuracy for counter-battery and precision strike missions. The 8-inch howitzer M1, equivalent to 203 millimeters, was developed in 1939 to deliver heavy shells with superior accuracy compared to larger caliber weapons. The weapon measured 205 inches long, weighed 30,600 pounds in firing position, and shared components with the Long Tom gun carriage. The barrel generated a muzzle velocity of 1,950 feet per second, firing a 200-pound shell to 18,510 yards maximum range. Field commanders regarded the M1 as the most inherently accurate artillery piece in the entire United States arsenal, making it highly valued for precision counter-battery fire against hidden German artillery positions. The United States produced approximately 1,050 M1/8-inch howitzers between 1940 and 1945. The weapon served in heavy artillery battalions throughout Europe and the Pacific, providing devastating precision fire during major campaigns. 8-inch gun M1. This ultra-long-range gun provided American forces with their most powerful mobile counter-battery weapon, capable of engaging targets beyond the range of any German artillery. The 8-inch gun M1, equivalent to 203 millimeters, was developed in 1940 to deliver maximum range fire support. The weapon measured 400 inches long, weighed 69,300 pounds in firing position, and required extensive emplacement procedures. The barrel generated a muzzle velocity of 2,840 feet per second, firing a 240-pound projectile to 35,600 yards, approximately 20 miles maximum range. The extreme chamber pressures generated catastrophic barrel wear, limiting tube lifespan to approximately 400 equivalent full-charge rounds before rifling degradation destroyed accuracy and mandated barrel replacement. The United States produced approximately 100 M1 8-inch guns between 1941 and 1945. The weapon served in heavy artillery battalions during the Italian campaign and Northwest Europe, though its weight and limited mobility restricted deployment. 240mm howitzer M1 Black Dragon. This super heavy howitzer represented the largest field artillery piece deployed by United States Army forces during World War II, officially nicknamed the Black Dragon. The 240mm howitzer M1 was developed in 1943 to provide siege artillery capability against heavily fortified positions. The weapon measured 337 inches long, weighed 64,700 pounds in firing position, and required two massive 38-ton high-speed tractors for transport. The barrel generated a muzzle velocity of 2,300 feet per second, firing a 360-pound shell to 25,255 yards maximum range. Emplacing the weapon required a dedicated 20-ton truck-mounted crane and excavation of a massive recoil pit to absorb firing stresses. The United States produced approximately 315 M1 super heavy howitzers between 1943 and 1945. The weapon served in separate heavy artillery battalions during the Italian campaign in Northwest Europe, delivering devastating fire against German fortifications, including the Siegfried Line. 37mm gun M3. This light anti-tank gun served as the primary American-towed anti-tank weapon during the early war years, before German armor improvements rendered it obsolete. The 37mm gun M3 was developed in 1938 based on German design concepts. The weapon measured 78 inches long, weighed 912 pounds in firing position, and remained light enough to be fired accurately from its wheels during emergency engagements. The barrel generated a muzzle velocity of 2,900 feet per second, capable of penetrating 36 millimeters of face-hardened armor at 500 yards using armor-piercing ammunition. The United States produced approximately 18,400 M3 guns between 1940 and 1943. The weapon equipped infantry anti-tank platoons throughout North Africa and the early Pacific campaigns. However, encounters with German Panzer IV and Tiger tanks revealed the M3's inadequacy against modern armor, forcing rapid replacement with larger caliber weapons. 57mm gun M1. This medium anti-tank gun provided American forces with improved armor penetration compared to the 37mm, though ammunition limitations reduced its effectiveness. The 57mm gun M1 was developed in 1941 as a license-built copy of the British 6-pounder anti-tank gun. The weapon measured 108 inches long, weighed 2,810 pounds in firing position, and required a dedicated gun crew for emplacement. The barrel generated a muzzle velocity of 2,700 feet per second, capable of penetrating 74 millimeters of armor at 1,000 yards using armor-piercing ammunition. The United States produced approximately 15,500 M1 guns between 1942 and 1945. The weapon equipped tank destroyer and infantry anti-tank units throughout Europe and the Pacific. However, the Ordnance Department's initial refusal to manufacture high-explosive rounds severely limited tactical utility against entrenched infantry until late 1944, when the ammunition finally entered production. 3-inch gun M5. This heavy anti-tank gun combined anti-aircraft barrel technology with howitzer carriage design, creating a powerful but cumbersome weapon. The 3-inch gun M5, equivalent to 76.2 millimeters, was developed in 1941 by mating an anti-aircraft barrel to a standard field artillery carriage. The weapon measured 194 inches long, weighed 4,875 pounds in firing position, making it exceptionally heavy for anti-tank operations. The barrel generated a muzzle velocity of 2,600 feet per second, firing armor-piercing capped shells capable of defeating contemporary German armor at combat ranges. However, the excessive trail weight made the carriage nearly impossible for gun crews to physically pivot in mud or soft terrain when tracking fast-moving flanking German tanks. The United States produced approximately 2,500 Me-5 guns between 1941 and 1945. The weapon saw limited service with tank destroyer battalions before being replaced by self-propelled tank destroyers and towed guns with superior mobility. 40mm automatic gun M1, Bofors. This automatic anti-aircraft gun became the standard American light air defense weapon, providing high rates of fire against low-altitude aircraft. The 40mm automatic gun M1, commonly known as the Bofors, was developed in 1941 based on Swedish design. The weapon weighed 5,150 pounds in firing position and featured an automatic mechanism achieving 120 rounds per minute cyclic rate with a maximum altitude ceiling of 23,000 feet. The primary United States Army variant incorporated the advanced M5 director system, utilizing electric hydraulic servo motors to automatically traverse and elevate the gun based on analog computer targeting data. Unlike manually cranked European versions, the United States produced approximately 39,000 M1 Bofors guns between 1941 and 1945. The weapon equipped anti-aircraft battalions protecting ports, air bases, and frontline formations throughout all theaters, proving highly effective against low-flying German and Japanese aircraft. 3-inch anti-aircraft gun M3. This medium anti-aircraft gun provided intermediate altitude air defense, though its heavy mount limited tactical flexibility. The 3-inch anti-aircraft gun M3, equivalent to 76.2 millimeters, was developed in 1928 and modernized throughout the 1930s. The weapon weighed 12,200 pounds in firing position and featured a heavy cruciform mount requiring complete disassembly for emplacement. The barrel generated a muzzle velocity of 2,800 feet per second, engaging targets to 31,300 feet maximum altitude ceiling. However, crews had to remove wheel bogies and lower the massive mount onto manual leveling jacks before firing, making rapid deployment or retreat under air attack virtually impossible. The United States produced approximately 2,400 M3 guns between 1940 and 1945. The weapon equipped anti-aircraft battalions throughout the early war period before being gradually replaced by the superior 90 mm gun. 90 mm anti-aircraft gun M1, M2, M3. This heavy anti-aircraft gun became the premier American air defense weapon, combining excellent altitude performance with radar fire control capabilities. The 90 mm anti-aircraft gun was developed in 1940 with successive improvements in the M1, M2, and M3 variants. The weapon weighed 19,800 pounds in firing position and featured a sophisticated mount allowing rapid traverse and elevation. The barrel generated a muzzle velocity of 2,700 feet per second, firing a 23-pound high-explosive shell to 33,800 feet maximum altitude ceiling. When paired with microwave radar and the classified variable time proximity fuse, introduced in 1944, 90 mm batteries protecting Allied ports achieved an 89% kill probability against inbound German V-1 flying bombs. The United States produced approximately 20,100 90 mm guns between 1940 and 1945. The weapon equipped anti-aircraft battalions throughout all theaters, providing critical air defense for ports, cities, and frontline formations. 120 mm anti-aircraft gun, M1 Stratosphere gun. This super heavy anti-aircraft gun represented the ultimate American high-altitude air defense weapon, nicknamed the Stratosphere gun. The 120 mm anti-aircraft gun M1 was developed in 1938 to engage high-altitude bombers beyond the reach of smaller caliber weapons. The weapon weighed 54,600 pounds in firing position and featured a complex hydro-pneumatic variable recoil mechanism. The barrel generated a muzzle velocity of 3,100 feet per second, firing a 50-pound shell to 57,500 feet maximum altitude ceiling. The innovative recoil mechanism automatically shortened the recoil stroke at high elevations, preventing the massive steel breech block from slamming violently into the ground during steep angle engagements. The United States produced approximately 550 M1 guns between 1940 and 1945. The weapon equipped strategic air defense batteries protecting major American cities and critical installations against potential high-altitude bomber attacks, though such threats rarely materialized during the war. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and drop a comment. See you on the next one.